Okay, once you are familiar with navigating the UI, you can start with creating a geometry. And we can start by creating a point. For example, here you can click on single point, and you see that when I hover my mouse over the icon, I see two commands with right click versus left click of the mouse. I'm doing left click, and then here in the command bar you see that it asks me to set the location of the point object. I can click anywhere in my top screen, and once I create the point, it exits the command, so there's nothing written in front of the command line. I can repeat or redo the previous command by hitting the space bar, and it asks me what's the location of this second point that you want to create. So I can actually keep doing that. Another way is left clicking, right clicking, and by right clicking it again repeats the last command that was in the history of the system, and you can insert points. So here are my points. You can move them by selecting them, and if gumball is not activated down here, you can activate it and you would see this XYZ axis, and you can move the points around in your screen. So that's the basic type of geometry. The second type is polyline. As you can see, I hover my mouse, left click is polyline, right click is a line segment. So I can create a polyline, and I keep clicking and it creates different parts of the line, and when I'm done drawing my polyline I hit enter, so it exits the command. And if I select this polyline, I can see it being first showed as yellow, and if I go to properties and expand details, it shows me that it's a curve. Its geometry is a valid curve. It's an open polyline with 7 points, and then these are the coordination of the points, etc. So I can close that, and if I grab the point itself using the gumball, I can move that one point and modify the polyline. Alternatively, I can select the polyline itself and move it. So whatever geometry it has, it will all move relative to one another, whereas by selecting the point, I'm actually modifying the shape of the polyline. So that's one type of geometry. So Rhino is really strong in creating freeform curves, and the function for it is NURBS modeling. So it's a special kind of curves or geometry that is calculated, and it's infinite. It has infinite smoothness. So here, if I left click on this icon, I should start with a point, and then when I click somewhere, it does not necessarily, my curve does not stick or pass through this curve, rather seems to be controlled by this point, which is a control point on my NURBS curve. As soon as I click somewhere, then you can see that my curve again does not pass through it, but seems that this second point is influencing the shape of the curve. So another click, and I hit enter. Now if I select this, you can see that the points that I actually used to click on the space are shown as these points that are having two tangent lines on the curve. Now this background might make it a little bit difficult to see those lines, and I can go and change it back to another color for now so that you can see that better. Let's see, how does this color work? So you should be able to see the yellow line and then this control point, and if I move the control point, you can see that the shape of my curve is being changed. I do not love this background, so I'm going to change it back to white for now, and maybe the selected objects, they are now shown as yellow. I can change it to a bright red or something here. Alternatively, you can create a NURBS curve if you click on this small triangle icon. You see that there are different ways of creating NURBS, and the second one is letting you to create a NURBS curve by interpolating points. In this case, when I click on the second point and the third point, you see that my NURBS curve is exactly passing through those points. And when I click enter, I exit the command, and if I select my NURBS curve, you see that the control points are now generated for this curve, as opposed to previous way of drawing a NURBS curve where wherever I was clicking, I was actually defining the control point and the curve was being calculated. So this is two different ways of drawing a curve. And the third object type that you can create is surface. And because I already have two curves, I'm gonna move one of them in the Z direction, and I'm gonna switch between my viewpoints a lot to do these operations, and maybe create a new layer, set the color to orange gold, and I can create a surface between these two curves. There are many ways of creating surfaces, and I'm going to just use one of them. One way of creating surface is lofting this first curve with this second curve, and while I'm active in a command, I can go and select a layer in which I want my surface to be generated in, and I click and hit OK. To be able to see this, I should set it to shaded, for example, or rendered, and you can see that this surface has been created for me between these two curves. Now, this is a dead geometry, and by dead geometry I mean that if I change the control points of my top curve, you see that this surface is generated remembering the old status of the curve, and it's gonna stay static. There is a way that you can create this surface in a way that it remembers it has been created by these two curves, and that is by turning on record history. Right before running the Loft command, you can click on record history, and you can see that it's activated here next to the gumball. And now I can type in Loft, select my bottom curve, top curve, and when I'm done selecting the curves, hit OK. I'm fine with all of the default settings, and I hit OK. I have the same surface. The difference would be obvious when I select the curve and select one of these control points and edit it. As soon as I change the curve, the surface changes in response to that change. The surface remembers that it has been created by that curve, so it keeps updating whenever I update my curve. So this is a very simple version of parametric modeling, meaning that this surface is not created by a fixed coordinate. Rather, it is created by being a function of those two curves that are controlling its shape. So that was a quick demonstration of points, polylines, NURBS curve, and just a simple command on creating a surface.